I've got big news, like Panasonic releasing the S1 Mark II while dumping the DFD autofocus system like big news. And I've got the evidence, so let's get to the details. But first, I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so that you're notified and don't miss the latest news and rumors like this. Sean Robinson dropped the hint about the new autofocus system the same way he dropped the hint about the announcement date for the Panasonic Lumix GH6 by turning his back to the camera. The top line reads "Sick AF," with S1 being in red, indicating that the new autofocus system is coming to the S1 Mark II. But ironically, the second line is hard to read, but doing some pixel peeping, I was able to get the following: at 4K 60 frames per second with AI. And the third line says Lumix S series. But what do you think? That second line was a little bit unclear to me at the beginning. There might have been something before at 4K 60. And in fact, it might not have said 4K 60, but based on my pixel peeping, that's what I got to see. But let's roll back a little bit here. This is a pretty big deal. Now, when I first saw Sick AF, and a lot of people were reporting on this, it was very interesting of what they're saying here with just Sick AF. The S1 is in red, so that indicates that it's related to the S series. And if you take a look at the third line, it does say Lumix S series, but Sick AF. Now, the term sick for my generation means, well, you're afflicted with some sort of physical or mental illness. You're feeling nauseous or feeling like vomiting. It's not a very, very pleasant term. But we all know that the younger generations take this word to mean something completely different. Astonishingly good, amazing. And I think that's what Panasonic's going with here. They're not saying that this camera is going to make you sick. What they're saying is the autofocus system is going to be truly amazing. And to be able to do that, the only way that they can do that is to completely dump the DFD autofocus system, the contrast detect autofocus system. And that's what's truly amazing about this reveal. And because it's coming on a shirt by Sean Robinson, who works with Panasonic Lumix, this isn't some sort of rumor. This is coming directly from them. They're teasing us. And there's a couple of things we can make out here. It is possible that we could potentially get a firmware update that dramatically improves the autofocus system. This is the route that Panasonic has taken before. They continuously update the autofocus system through firmware updates by releasing new models, again, improving upon the autofocus system. But to produce some Sick AF, something truly astonishing and impressive, they have to move away from contrast detect. And a couple of months ago, when Sean came out and talked about the new GH6, there was a long interview with one of the guests where they talked about the considerations they made when developing the GH6. And they truly understood. They spent about 5 or 6 minutes talking about the importance of pursuing a phase detect autofocus system, or an autofocus system that delivers much better results. So to tease us with a sick autofocus system here, and to have the F1, and to mention on the third line that this is a Panasonic Lumix Series S series, I really think that what we're going to see is not a firmware update to the S1, but they're getting ready to announce the Mark IIs. This is about 2 years ago since Panasonic first introduced the S series with the S1 and the S1R. The S1H didn't come for about 6 months later. So to do a refresh 2 years afterwards isn't completely uncommon with a camera of this caliber. Generally, companies wait anywhere from 2 to 4 years, and because this was their first iteration, releasing a Mark II series certainly makes sense. But could they be giving us a phase detect autofocus system, a time of flight autofocus system, a different autofocus system from the contrast detect, depth from defocus autofocus system? I certainly hope so. I'm really excited by this. And maybe you are too. Do you own a Panasonic? And if you do, and you do shoot manual most of the time, this is a big deal. This really is a big deal, because this would start to attract people from outside of Panasonic and grow that market share above 5% and get Panasonic to take a more rightful share in the SEPA monthly shipped units, because Panasonic produces really amazing cameras that are capable of producing very good video results. Just look at all the features, the waveforms. They've been doing this long before anybody else, and they were the first camera company to release firmware updates month after month, long after cameras came out, providing new enhancements and new capabilities to their cameras. So yes, I am excited. Yes, this is the potential for something very, very big to happen. And yes, there is a chance that Lumix might just be playing around with us like they played around with us at CES, talking about the camera to be unnamed, the GH6 that we've been waiting for 5 years. Before teasing us, it was the wrong time to tease us. But here, after having a very frank conversation with Sean a couple of months ago, talking about the inadequacies of the autofocus system, how they prioritize other things such as frame rates, resolutions, video modes.
Obviously, we pay attention. We know people are looking for a PDAF solution. We've worked on improving the DFD autofocus system for a number of years. Ultimately, in order to give the picture quality improvements that this new sensor has to offer with its faster readout speed, with the dynamic range boost function, which I think people are going to be very impressed with the overall image quality of the sensor. It is a substantial improvement over the GH5, and realistically, it has more dynamic range than a GH5S.
And said that they understand, they hear us, and that they are looking to improve the autofocus system. Is this too soon to pivot? To actually announce that they're going to be having a new S-series camera being announced relatively soon? I would say somewhere within the next 3 or 4 months. Could we get an announcement by May? Hard to say. That doesn't mean it's going to ship in May. It might ship by the end of summer, like August or September. But if Panasonic Lumix announces an S1 that ditches the DFD autofocus system, and I'm just going to say it, forget what the autofocus system is called, but if it's accurate and reliable, like Sony, Canon, and Nikon, I think this is a game changer. But what do you think? Do you think that if Panasonic does come out with a sick autofocus system that's trustworthy and reliable like the top 3, what do you think it's going to do to their market share numbers? I really think that this can really help revolutionize Panasonic and really align with their strategy of focusing on video first. I mean, they've already got the capabilities in their cameras, the video resolutions. They were one of the first to introduce ProRes, high detail video, incredible video supporting tools such as waveforms, dual card slots, and they've introduced CF Express Type B card slot to the GH6. So I'm really excited by this. But we do need a bit of a reality check. We do need to understand here that this could be an awful lot of hype over just a more updated contrast detect autofocus system that we're going to be getting in a firmware update, or the S1 Mark II might be coming out with a much more improved autofocus system, again, based on contrast detect autofocus. This shirt, this reveal by Sean Robinson doesn't really give us many more details, but by choosing a sick autofocus system in that first line, that really tells us that it is supposed to be astonishing and amazing based on the urban slang dictionary and not designed to make us vomit or feel nauseous. Now, I am willing to believe that their autofocus system is going to be dramatically improved. I'm not willing to yet say it's going to be a phase detect autofocus system because Panasonic has been working on an additional or a different autofocus system called the time of flight. And this is used in smartphones. So let's wait and see, because it really doesn't matter what the system is called or the architecture, so long as the outcome, the results, are reliable and accurate autofocus, because everything else in these cameras is truly amazing. And I'm also excited to possibly imagine what else Panasonic might be putting in their S-series cameras. Will we be getting 8K video, 6K video, 8K oversample 4K, 6K oversample 4K? Video modes and resolutions provide us with so much more detail, especially if we're doing documentary type work. And if it's too much detail for the work you do, well, you can always soften it in post, but to be able to have that detail right out of camera without overheating, very, very impressive. Wow, I am truly staggered. When I saw this information, I thought, wow, I got to get this out there during my lunch break. I'm shooting this all in one take. I probably tripped over my words a few times. I don't care. I want to get this out to you so you don't have to wait another 4 to 6 hours. But what do you think? Does this have you wanting to revisit Panasonic? If you want to know the latest news and rumors, updates on the story, or anything camera related, do yourself a favor, subscribe and choose all notifications so that way as soon as I publish a video, you're going to have the latest news and rumors. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.